Hello YouTubers, here's a preview of our next project. It's a Philco 48250 120. It's the first series of the year for 1948, and I know they made 1 million of these things and a lot of people have them, but I just like it. It's just such a basic radio. It's got a good solid Bakelite cabinet on it. I like the actually, I think that's plastic, come to think of it, but it's in good condition. No flaking of the paint behind the dial lens. The dial actually turns on this one, which means I get to be lucky not to have to restring another one. And as you can see, the label is very much intact. How much it'll be intact after I buff this radio out, I have no idea. But also, it's got a oval speaker, which means this thing should sound pretty good. I think that's a 3x5 speaker. I'm not sure. So just by eyeballing it, it looks like a 3x5. We're not going to plug this one in just yet because, as you can see, got a little problem here with a very brittle cord. So we'll take care of that. It does have the original back on it, but somebody a long time ago carved their address in here. So we still got it, and it's still got the original push clips too, which is kind of neat because you don't see a lot of radios with all 4 of them still in place. A little dusty on the inside, but we'll clean that up. And so that's that. The Philco 48250. See if I can track down a photo fact for this. I may have one downstairs in the shop actually. I might not have to order one. So we'll find that and then we'll get started on it. Okay, we got the back off here, and right off the bat, got a missing tube. Okay, well, at least the antenna is properly connected on this one. This radio is pretty similar in design to the 47205 that we did. I'm going to tear into that radio once again because I just wasn't pleased with how it came out, and something is definitely amiss. So fear not, for YouTube viewers there, we will pull that radio apart once again and go through it a little more thoroughly, because that one, you know, you sleep on them and you wake up in the morning and you're like, that's just not right. And so we'll tear into it once again. But let's see if we can get this one going. Looks like the speaker is in good shape from what I can see here. No holes in it. Okay, well, I can't really do much with this until we get an AC cord for it. I hope I can somehow keep that cord tensioner on there. Maybe not, but very dusty. This one, very dusty. Looks like it was in a wet environment too, but no rust. Okay, so we'll go. Let's pull the chassis on this one. Okay, we got the chassis pulled. It's just very dusty. Got a little curl up here on this label. Very dusty. I don't know if this is just regular paper stock. I might be able to just replace that with a piece of manila folder or something. Looks like it's just glued on there. Speaker's in great shape. Dial cord's in good condition. Here we go. My messy kitchen. Anyhow, very dusty, but we'll get to it. Blow this thing out with some air. That is a 50B5 that we need, and I don't know if I have one in stock. I may have one in stock downstairs. It looks like it's been recently stolen out of this radio. Somebody must have needed it for something. I just clipped the 2 antenna leads. Those are easy enough to reconnect. And that's it. So you're taking a look at first look underneath, as I am. Looks pretty straightforward here. Lots of paper caps, as is to be found in these old radios. Looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 paper caps, and then we got this fine Sprague electrolytic. I wonder if this is original. Most likely is, but I've never seen a connection quite like that before, and this thing looks fairly new, but it should. It's under the chassis. But anyway, all right. Not going to start this right just yet. A 50 B5, is that what I said we need? Let's see if we have one in stock. Well, I picked up a few cases of tubes a while back, and so far I've been fairly lucky as far as finding what I want. Well, let's see if we're going to find that 50 B5. That would be quite awesome if we have that. Got a 50 C5. Let's see here. Another 50 C5, another 50 C5, lots of 50 C5s, and a 50 B5. That's probably why somebody swiped it out of the radio. Oh, what do you know? What do you know? I wonder if this is actual. This has the actual tube still in it. Let's see here. Make sure this wasn't swapped out with something else. I'm using 2 hands to pull that out. What do you know? Brandy spanking new. That's the tube we need. How about that? Lucked out again. Okay, we got the cabinet over here on the counter. As you can see, it's a little dirty on the inside. Not too bad. And but I think we're gonna do the cabinet on this one before we dip into the electronics. So all I'm going to do is take an old rag here with just some soap on it, and a wet rag, and we're just going to go over it here and try and get all the dirt off and tobacco and whatever else that's been deposited on the surface of this radio for years and years and years. And we're just going to give it a cleaning. Just a good general cleaning with a mild soap, and see how much dirt and grime that we can get off of it here. Okay, now in order to get into the grooves, which are not easy to do on with a rag, we're just going to take a toothbrush, an old toothbrush, with a little bit of soap on it, a little water, and just get in there and scrub. Make sure you get into the corners. Try to be as thorough as you can here. Always good to keep some old toothbrushes around for cleaning projects, not only for radios, but for pretty much anything that you need to get into a small space with. You're detailing anything. There, I'm going to go a little gingerly around that sticker, because I don't want to take that off. Alrighty. And take a wet rag and we will rinse off all the soap. as much of it as we can. I really don't want to douse the cabinet too much because of the label on the bottom. We want to keep that and the sticker on the inside of the cabinet, as well as the antenna is only glued into position, so we kind of want to be careful about those things, or mindful anyway. Here, good. Normally I do this in the garage, but since the garage is a little chilly this time of the year, we're working in the kitchen. So my apologies for a little messy counter this morning. Alrighty. Take some paper towels and give it a good drying. You have to have these radios clean if you're going to polish them, otherwise you will wind up polishing the dirt right underneath your polish job there, and it will be there forever. So you want to get these radios as good as clean, or as clean as possible rather, before you start any type of buffing work on them. You may not have to even buff this radio because this is already, look at the reflection on that. That's just with soap and water, folks. Look at the reflection on that. That is pretty good so far. That's just a major improvement right off the bat. But we'll still buff it out just to give it that extra mirror shine. We'll use a little Novus. I think we'll just use Novus number 2 on it very lightly, and then hit it with some Novus polish, and that should be a handsome radio. Okay, got an old rag here. These terry cloth rags are just a couple of bucks for like a half a dozen of them, or maybe even a dozen of them at Walmart. Just put a little bit on there, and that's Novus number 2, by the way. Fine scratch remover. This radio's in pretty good shape, so we don't really need to break out the heavy stuff. This is not the miracle product. It is not going to rejuvenate every surface. Although the more that you use this, or I should say the more times you buff with it, you'll get a better. Look at the oxidation and stuff it pulls out of the bakelite already. Just in that little cleaning right there. Just in that little wipe down. And we'll try and get as close as we can without actually getting it on that dial lens. Some guys would take the dial lens out. I always seem to open Pandora's box whenever I do that, so I'm going to leave that on. What you would do is you would let this dry to a haze and then buff it out, just like waxing a car. And that's really all you need. Whoever had this radio took good care of it, so bonus for us. So I think we'll just give this a once over and then call it a day on this. Cabinet's already got good shine to it, so this should brighten it right up. Bring out some of the swirl in that bakelite. Okay, while we wait for the Novus number 2 to dry on the cabinet, went ahead and cleaned up the chassis quite a bit here, and really it's not that big of an issue if it's just standing dust. I just use a regular cheapy paintbrush to brush out the nooks and crannies, and I use the vacuum attachment on the brush attachment on the vacuum cleaner, and got that cleaned up pretty good, actually. No rust too, so that's a bonus. And I wiped down the tubes as well. You don't want to use window cleaner or any, ammonia based cleaner on these, because you will wipe the rating right off the top there, as you can see that. And if you don't know what the tube is, well, you're SOL, more or less. So don't do like we used to do as kids and just get in there with Windex and start wiping off the tubes and wiping off all the lettering along with it. It's a couple of originals here. These wonderful Lochtel tubes. And a couple of replacements. And of course we'll have a replacement for that one as well. So not necessarily a low hours set, but still in good physical condition. We'll see what happens when we tear into the electronics. Let's go finish up that cabinet. Alrighty, we already did the top and most of the front. Now it's just a matter of doing the sides here. I'm going to buff this out really good with a nice clean, dry cloth. And even if you think you got it done, buff it a little more. And this is before the final polishing too, and that's already got a nice shine on it. Do the other side here. Make sure you get the edges really good. Always try to go in a circular motion if you can help it. Actually saw a little piece of busted glass inside the cabinet, which I guess means that that's where that one tube went at some point back in the past. There's a couple of pieces of broken glass that came out of here actually. Just keep buffing it out. A little elbow grease is required for this step, but the end result will be well worth the effort. There. And that's it. Biggest worry is fingerprints at this point. You want to keep this cabinet as clean as you can from the effects of handling it. So when you do the final polish, you won't get too many marks. Not bad. Got a good shine to it. Indeed. Nice reflection on that. This Nova's product is pretty good stuff, I got to admit. See that? Nice reflection on there, just the way it's supposed to be. Now we'll do a final polish on it, and I think I'm going to hit this grill one more time just to get some of the haze out of it, and that's that. And, we already went inside with the vacuum cleaner and cleaned it all out, and it's looking good on the inside too, although we won't polish the inside. No real point to that. But, plus I want to be careful of this antenna, which is only glued in place, and the less I have to fix the better. So looking good so far. Nice easy radio to restore, at least aesthetically. We'll see about what the electronics hold in store for us later on.
Well, we've got the 48250 here opened up, and I had some free time yesterday, so I went ahead and just did a recap on it. Went pretty straightforward, and this radio was actually pretty simple to work on compared to some of the others of similar design for whatever reason. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. Got lucky on this one. Wasn't too much of a pain, so had to get a little creative here with the electrolytics. That's why They look like they're pointing in opposite directions, but the common ground here, this black wire joins in the center. You know, so you gotta do what you gotta do to make them fit and make them secure. And that's it. Probably could have used a little heat shrink on this, but that's not really near anything. Won't pose a problem. And the rest of this was, again, pretty straightforward. So that's that. There's the cabinet, and we're gonna put a new line cord on this. I just use replacement lamp cords from Walmart, made by GE. Couple of bucks, and they're cheaper and they're a little less stiff than using an old extension cord or something. So that's that. We'll get a new line cord on here, and then we'll give it an alignment, and we'll see how it works. There, for those people who aren't familiar, this is what we use for a new line cord here. 8 foot long, and it already has the pre-soldered tips on it, which is very handy. And it's a polarized plug, what you need. And it'll last and last, and it's a little more pliable than using a, you know, some people will just go out and buy an extension cord and cut the end off of it and use that. And that's a good cheap way to do it, but I never liked using those because those cords tend to be, they're heavier gauge and they're a little stiffer. And you really don't need that for this. I mean, we're not, you know, we're not drawing 500 watts here, you know. 30, maybe 35, who knows. But we're certainly not drawing heavy amperage here, so we don't really need a huge heavy-duty cord. So this is what we use for replacement AC cords here on these old radios. Okay, we got the new line cord hooked up. I use a couple of twist ties on here, a couple of small ones. I just crank them down tight, and that provides the strain relief. It's kind of the poor man's way to do it, since I don't have the proper strain relief grommet that goes in there, or whatever those things are called. But that's a cheap way to do it, and this way it won't pull the connections apart here. So let's get this thing on its right side and plug it in and see if we got any action. Okay, let's we'll power it up here, and we'll listen for any crackling. Shouldn't be. Hopefully no smoke. Dial light does not work. That's interesting. Now we have power. We'll have to see if we can replace that. I don't know if I have any lamps in stock here. Well, we have audio. This radio is nice and quiet. I don't have any antenna hooked up here because it's out of the cabinet at the moment. But let's see if it picks up our local transmitter here in the house. There it is. Wow, this radio's loud, and it's clean. Probably won't pick anything else up. Wouldn't imagine. Alright, so I think we got a success here. I'm going to turn on the signal generator here and make sure everything is copacetic with the alignment, and put it back in the cabinet. Okay, we've got it reassembled here and the antenna hooked up. Now let's see how it does. Give it a minute to warm up.
The number of school days remains the same. State law requires 180 days of instruction, but districts can choose which days.
Better with Biggs. Here's Dan Meyer.
I don't have a replacement number 47 dial light, so we'll have to get some of those with our next parts order. I'm not going to cannibalize a radio for one. Just a shame. I wanted to see this lit up, but
5 at 5. I do have 4 number
do a
ones.
quick
Just
dial
wanna
scan
give
here.
people some information about
An explosive sexual desire. Now you can continue to feel like the real men that made this country great. Do yourself a favor. Do America a favor by calling now for your free bottle.
Nice and loud.
To get started with McLean, call Karen and Human Resources at 861-6122. That's 861-6122.
Oh, little Roger, wherever it was. I don't have the information.
Now, different ones of us thought that we ought to get us a mouthful to eat before that we set up the tent. And so we got off of the truck and followed this.
But that dome hasn't had its growth spurt yet.
We'll debate right back. 33 in Burlington, Vermont. Sunny and 40 degrees in Hartford, Connecticut. And cloudy and 32 here in Albany. Stay tuned for more WANC News after Vox Pop at 3 o'clock.
They're going to learn to trust us, but breaking bread, and then when they ask you a story...
Well, that's about as good of a reception as we get. We get a lot of interference here from some cheap Chinese power supplies, and
You tell them
sounds like somebody's got either a computer monitor or a CRT running somewhere too. The joys of
ask them about,
living in a multiple dwelling building.
ask them about
But
Abraham. They'll tell you a chronic story. You can tell a
this
Bible
radio
story,
works
and guess
very
what?
good, actually.
God's
So I think we're going to take it in the room where we have a little less interference and give it a run there. And we'll call this one, except for the dial light, we'll call it complete. Couldn't have planned that one better. Good ending song. The Philco 48250.